Well, welcome back. I had my 14th or 15th cup of coffee during the break, and I have some more here beside me. There's no such thing as too much caffeine. By the way, I just thought I would pass that on. And while we're on the subject of those things, I'm going to give you another personal hint about health. In physics, a calorie is a measure of heat. It's the amount of heat it takes to raise the temperature of water 1 degree. Therefore, it only makes sense to me that if things are cold, there's no calories in there. I mean, a cold beer, ice cream, I mean, you're home free, right? There's no calories. Leftover chicken in the refrigerator, perfect. Now, one other diet tip I'll give you. My doctor wants me to eat a lot of leafy green vegetables. Well, grass is a leafy green vegetable. Cows eat grass. Therefore, a ribeye steak is a compact leafy green vegetable. Now, I just thought I would share that with you. All right. We're going to talk about communication and the role of communication in bringing out the best in other people. There are several different types of communication. I'm going to go over them very quickly just as an introductory thing. One that is often forgotten and by far the most important is intrapersonal communication. I-N-T-R-A. Not interpersonal, which is between people. Intra, communication with yourself. You can call it talking to yourself if you want to. But what it really is thinking. And we all need that quiet time, that moment of peace when we think about our lives, our values, what we're doing, how we're relating to other people, what we are accomplishing versus what we want to accomplish. We need to think. And actually, the motto in my classes at the university when I teach, think harder. Interpersonal communication is between two people. A dyad, D-Y-A-D, is between two people. Right? Now, it could be a person and a dog. I happen to speak several dialects of dog. Right now, I'm most fluent in Schipperke. And it works very well. And I tell you something else I've noticed. I've raised dogs ever since I was a tiny little boy. I've had a dog. And I've helped raise 7 girls, as I told you. And dogs are easier to housebreak, easier to train than girls are. I just thought I'd throw that out there. Okay. We go from intrapersonal communication, where we are thinking, to interpersonal communication, where we're talking with another person, to small group communication. Then there's a whole different set of dynamics in small group communication. Generally, there's a purpose, but not always. Sometimes it's just a party. But there's still a different set of dynamics, small group communication. There's public communication, where it's just one person talking to a group of people. It's different than small group where everybody's talking. Public communication is like the pastor in his church. I remember years ago when I was living in Alaska, went with the governor. I was the governor's assistant, as a matter of fact. That was my job. I was his special assistant. And we were traveling, and we went to an all-black church. It was campaign time, and the governor was invited to go to Reverend Patterson's church. Alonzo Patterson. I'll never forget this. And at the end of his sermon, Reverend Patterson gets up and he's telling his flock, he's telling his congregation who to vote for, including our governor. And he's going down the list. And this gentleman stood up in the back and he said, equal time, equal time. And Reverend Patterson said, this is my church, there's no equal time. I'm telling you who to vote for. Right? So that's public communication. One man talking to a group. Then mass communication. Now this is kind of a strange thing to me. My PhD is in mass communication. And I'm here looking at this camera telling you, I don't think there is such a thing. not directly. What there is someone delivering a message to a mass of people. It could be the President of the United States talking to the American people on TV. It could be a television commercial, which 80 million people are going to see. Or it could be the Super Bowl, which 300 million people are going to see around the world. That's going out to a mass of people, but it is being watched, listened to, and interpreted one person at a time. Everyone is seeing it through their eyes and their experience. And so mass communication isn't directly, in my opinion, mass communication. Now, indirectly it is, because if it's a commercial, if it's a venture, if it's a political thing we're trying to sell, then there will be a reaction, a communication back. It'll just be slower and harder to measure. We also have spiritual communication. It's a real thing. Now, it goes beyond just religion, and I'm not saying that religion is less because of this. I happen to be a spiritual person myself. I happen to believe in prayer. The reason I do is because it's the one time during the day when a man recognizes that there's someone more important than him. That he's not the center of the universe. Maybe somebody else is. And I think we all need that dose of humility once in a while. But there's also a spirit in a team. There's a team spirit that communicates. There's a spirit in a workplace, in a community, that you can build and use to create two advantages. Right? So communication. And primarily, above all things, communication is a search for understanding. It's a search for understanding. And if there is a misunderstanding, it's both your fault. It's the fault of the listener for not saying, I don't think I get it yet. Or for not saying, here's what I think it means. Is this right? And it's the fault of the speaker for not saying, do you understand me? And trying to find out what we're talking about. Make sure it's on the same thing. Communication is primarily a search for understanding. Now, to successfully communicate, you must want to understand the other person. And that's where most communication falls apart, because folks don't really care. They really don't care what you think. They really would rather not hear what you have to say. And you can see it in their eyes. Their ears are kind of listening to what you're saying, but in their eyes you can see they're somewhere else. They kind of glaze over, and they're not paying attention. They really don't want to understand you. Or maybe you don't want to understand them or their position. And as long as you have that attitude, you can't effectively communicate. Communication is every single thing we say. And once you say it, you can't take it back. You can apologize, but the damage is done. That person may forgive you. They won't forget. I'm a trained counselor, and I've done marriage counseling, and I have told couples, you need to forgive him. And she'll say, well, I don't think I can. I said, well, yes, you can. You can forgive. You won't forget, but you can forgive. They're different things. So think about what you're saying. Now, I'm Irish, and not really, I'm actually Scotch, but not Scotch either. I'm Scot. But my relatives lived in Ireland for a while, and before we came to America, my ancestors, and we picked up this Irish habit of speaking without thinking. Now, I don't want to be picketed by the Irish in the audience, please. All right? But you got to think about what you're going to say and what reaction you're going to get. If you don't, you'll be sorry. Because communication is absolutely everything you say. It is also everything you fail to say. And very often, the things that you fail to say are much more powerful than what you said. If you failed to say good morning or thank you or you look nice or I love you when you should have, you've made a bad mistake. If you fail to give people, hey, I appreciate that, you've made a mistake. Failing to say the right thing is just as bad as saying the wrong thing. It may be worse. We all know what feedback is, right? We all know what feedback is. We put our hand on the stove, it burns, we take our hand off. That's feedback. Ooh, it hurt. You know what feed forward is? There is such a thing. Feed forward is what is said about you when you're not around. If people know you're coming to the party, what are they saying before you get there? It's your reputation. My mother worried about my reputation. That's what she always said. Think about your reputation. I used to tease my brother, may he rest in peace, that I couldn't get a date when I was a young boy because of his reputation. And he would always say, oh, it was the other way around. But there is such a thing as feed forward. What do you want people saying about you when you're not around? That's communication. Communication begins with what we think about. Paul writes in one of the chapters in the Bible, he's writing to the, I don't know whether it's the Philippians or the Corinthians or who, but he says, things that are pure, things that are good, things that are meaningful, think on these things. The Buddhists teach, actually Buddha himself wrote, that as certainly as the cart will follow the ox, a man will become what he thinks. And so when you are designing this intrapersonal communication, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about things that will bring no good to anyone, including yourself? Then you are miscommunicating. You're talking about the wrong things. Communication is everything that is thought about us, whether it's perceived or whether it's true. Now, we often hear this little phrase that what is what is perceived. Well, not necessarily. I mean, come on, now, be real. Think about that. What is what is perceived. May not be that way at all. It appears that way. Now, it could be the same thing. I had a boss of mine one time give me a phone call and ask me to come to her office. And I went to her office and she invited me to sit down and coffee if I wanted it, and shoved the candy bowl towards me. And she said, I want to talk to you about a perception difficulty. She said, you are a member of a staff with me and 6 other women. So there's 7 women and you on this staff. You are 6 feet, 3 or 4 inches tall. I don't know what. And you're a big man, well over 250 pounds. And she said, because I know you, I know you're hard hearing, and therefore you speak loud. And you're passionate. You move your hands and point your fingers and bang on the table. She said, I just want you to know, you're scaring the hell out of these people. You come in this room, you come across as aggressive and arrogant, and I know you're not, but that is the perception. She said, I want you to come in here, I want you to sit in these steps, sit on your hands, keep them under the table. Don't be pounding your finger on the table. Learn to speak softly, or learn to speak not at all. Just because you have an opinion on something, she said, you don't have to share it. Because you're smart, you're bright, you're passionate, and you're scaring people. It was a perception problem. I didn't see myself as arrogant or aggressive. But once she said that, I did. So, what's your self-inventory? Right? What is the perception people have of you? Communication is nonverbal. Again, I go by how do you look? What are your facial expressions? Do you look people in the eye? How do you shake hands? I hate a little limp. Come on, if you're going to shake my hand, put it in there. You know? Do you walk with confidence, talk with confidence, look good? The whole thing, the nonverbals. Do you pay attention to other people? And of course, as you all know, with the computer, the end of your life as a professional is just one click away. All it takes is for you to hit send when you shouldn't have, to ruin everything. All right? Communication is everything you write, and don't forget it. We are communicating in a world of diversity. I used to tell jokes all the time. I've quit. Because I learned the hard way that what's funny to me may not be funny to someone else. It may hurt their feelings, it may embarrass them, it may harm your relationship. We communicate in a world of diversity, and we have to think about the differences of other people. Communication, by the way, you know the weather communicates. My favorite time of the year is winter, when we have a lot of snow, because it's the only time of the year that my yard looks as good as my neighbor's. Right? But the way we keep our house, the way we keep our car, and I'm really in trouble there because I got a beat up old pickup truck. I hit a post on the right hand side and the running board's knocked off. My wife's constantly after me to do something about that, but I can't afford it. Communication. This is important. Of course it's important. Everything I say is important. Communication is a symbolic transaction. Right? When we're communicating with someone, we're trading symbols. If I say dog, the person on the other side will have something in his or her mind. It could be a skipper key like I have, little black foxes with pointed ears and no tails. It could be a Great Dane like I used to have. It could be 12 inches long in a bun and have relish on it. It could be some of those guys I used to run off from my house trying to date my daughter. Dog has a different meaning. Right? So when we trade words, expressions, it's a symbolic transaction. And for a transaction to be good, both sides have to get something positive. Don't forget that. Communication is an opportunity to inspire, to lift people up, to motivate. One final word about communication. I'll probably talk about it again later, but for this one final word. There was a movie came out years ago, and again, most of you are probably too young to remember, that it was called Cool Hand Luke. I believe it was Paul Newman. And there was a line in there that the warden of the prison used to say all the time. What we have here is a failure to communicate. I want to tell you something. There's no such thing. You cannot fail to communicate. You can do it poorly or you can do it well, but you're going to communicate. If you walk, teenage girls, I've seen this a lot of times, walk into the bedroom and slam the door and not come out. Aren't they communicating? Their absence, their silence, their sullenness. There's been times when I get home from work and my wife's car is parked there in the back of the house by the garage. And I get out of my truck and I walk in. I know she's home. I say, hello. And there's not a sound. I know to get the dogs, get a cigar, go for a walk, because things aren't good in there. Right? Even silence communicates. So think about it. You basically are what you communicate. All right, that's enough for this session, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.